Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that as the series descends deeper into its haunting examination of generational trauma and long-buried secrets, a new character arrives who may prove to be the most emotionally explosive addition yet. Her name is June. Viewers first meet her not with fireworks or a dramatic introduction, but in a quiet, almost surreal scene. She walks hand in hand with a young girl named Clara, standing in front of the Richardson Clinic, asking to see a man named Bill. The receptionist is confused. No one comes asking for Bill Richardson without an agenda. And June's calm, polite tone doesn't match the weight of her request. "Tell him his granddaughter is here," she says softly. That's when everything changes. Bill Richardson has spent decades burying the sins of his past beneath philanthropy, clinical research, and community image. Most people know him as the widowed doctor who helped reform Richardson Medical into a regional powerhouse. Fewer remember the scandal that once nearly ended him, the death of his wife, Marianne, under violent and mysterious circumstances. Fewer still remember that Bill was the primary suspect in her death, and though the case was dropped due to lack of evidence, the cloud of guilt never fully left him. When he hears that a woman named June is asking for him, with a child she claims is his granddaughter, Bill nearly drops his coffee. Not because he doesn't believe it, but because he knows it has to be true. June is the daughter he abandoned, or rather, the daughter who disappeared the night her mother died. What follows is not a tearful reunion. It is a reckoning. June steps into Bill's office not with affection, but with fury coiled behind her eyes. She introduces Clara, who clutches a small stuffed animal and won't make eye contact with anyone. Bill tries to speak, to ask questions, to fill the empty years with words. June doesn't let him. "This isn't about forgiveness," she says. "This is about survival. Clara's sick. She needs genetic treatment. And you're the only one who can help her." The request cuts like a knife. Bill has spent his life pretending his past didn't define him. Now that same past is demanding he become accountable, not in a courtroom, but in a hospital room. June explains that Clara has a rare blood disorder, one that requires close genetic matches for treatment. They've exhausted options. Bill, as her grandfather, might be the only compatible donor. She doesn't beg. She doesn't ask for emotional support. She lays out the medical facts and stares him down like a surgeon staring at a patient on the table. Bill agrees to help. How could he not? But from the start, the arrangement is tense. June refuses to stay at the estate. She and Clara check into a modest hotel near the clinic. She supervises every medical meeting, refuses to leave Clara alone with Bill, and keeps their interactions strictly clinical. Others in the family begin to notice. Eva is the first to voice concern. She's heard whispers, pieced together fragments of Bill's past, but she's never heard the name June. When she confronts Bill, he tries to brush it off. "It's complicated," he says. "So uncomplicated." "Who is she?" Bill doesn't answer. Kat, who has always viewed Bill as a ghost hovering on the edges of her own fractured family history, becomes more suspicious. She begins digging. Records, newspaper clippings, interviews. She finds the old case file on Marianne Richardson's death, sealed but not forgotten. She sees the bloodstains, the photographs, the timeline, and the name of the child listed as missing, June Richardson, age 10. Kat confronts Eva. Bill had another daughter. She disappeared after his wife died. She's not just some mystery woman. She's the ghost of a crime scene. Eva doesn't want to believe it. But then she meets June herself. It's at the clinic after Clara undergoes a preliminary treatment. June is tired, worn down, her walls temporarily lowered. Eva introduces herself cautiously. "I'm Eva. Bill's." She pauses. "Relative." June eyes her, unreadable. Then shrugs. "There's a lot of us, apparently." They talk. And for a moment, something human emerges from the guarded bitterness. June admits that she didn't plan to ever return. That she had built a life away from all of it. That she had told herself she didn't care. But then Clara got sick. And when I looked at her and realized I couldn't save her alone, I hated that the only man who could help was the one who destroyed everything I loved. Eva asks the obvious question. Did he do it? Did Bill kill your mother? June doesn't answer directly. He didn't try to stop it. That's what I remember. The screaming. The silence after. The blood. And then the look on his face when I ran. Like he wanted me to disappear too. It's enough. Eva walks away shaken. She doesn't tell Kat what she heard. As Clara's treatment progresses, tension in the Richardson family builds. Bill becomes more emotionally invested, visiting Clara, bringing her books and puzzles, trying to establish a bond. Clara warms to him slowly. June watches, torn between gratitude and rage. Then the nightmare begins to unravel. A medical discrepancy appears. The genetic markers between Bill and Clara don't match as closely as they should. The lab reruns the test. Same result. Clara isn't Bill's biological granddaughter. Bill confronts June, devastated. You lied to me. June doesn't deny it. You killed my mother. You think you deserve to know the truth about my child. Bill reels. Then why? Why did you come back? Because you owed me. Because I wanted you to give anything to a child the way you never gave anything to me. Because I wanted you to be useful before you die. She turns away. Bill stumbles home crushed. Alone. The truth devastates him more than any courtroom sentence ever could. But June isn't done. She goes public. In an exclusive interview with a major investigative journalist, she lays out the entire story. Her mother's death, her years in hiding, her daughter's illness, her calculated return. The piece goes viral. Headlines scream, heir to medical dynasty accused of burying family murder. The Richardson name begins to rot from the inside out. Kat is furious. Eva is horrified. Ted is silent. And June? She sits beside Clara in a hospital room, watching the monitors beep steadily, knowing she did what she came to do. She made the ghost bleed. But what she didn't expect was the guilt. Clara asks her one night, "Is Grandpa really a bad man?" June hesitates. Then lies. He's just a man who made terrible choices. The pain in her chest doesn't go away. And when the doctors say that Clara's condition has stabilized, that she has a chance now not because of Bill's genes, but because of an experimental therapy June had refused until recently, something breaks inside her. She had used her daughter as a weapon. And the target bled. But so did she. In the weeks that followed the exposé, the fallout from June's revelations blanketed the Richardson legacy like a suffocating fog. Protests flared outside Richardson Medical. Donors withdrew. Former allies distanced themselves. And at the center of it all, Bill Richardson moved through his days like a Manhafarecida name stripped of honor, a legacy drowned in old blood. Bill stopped going to the clinic. He stopped answering calls. He walked his estate in silence, retracing the same paths he once walked with Marianne, the same paths June might have run through as a girl. He had nothing to say to the world and no defense left to give. Kat, long used to the family being embroiled in controversy, found herself unnerved by the emotional weight this one carried. It wasn't just scandal. It was reckoning. She confronted Eva about what she knew, but Eva only said, "I believe June's pain is real. I believe Bill's guilt is too. That's all I can say." Ted called a family meeting. Not a press strategy. Not a legal session. Just a room, chairs, and silence. Eva came. Kat showed up late. Bill never appeared. Ted looked at his daughters, his face weary. "If we lose everything," he said, "we still have the truth. That has to be enough." Kat laughed bitterly. "You think the truth matters now? It's a headline. A weapon. A curse." "Maybe," Eva said quietly. "But it's also freedom." They left that night with no plan, only shared exhaustion. Meanwhile, June watched Clara grow stronger. The girl who had once refused to make eye contact now smiled. She began drawing again. She asked questions. She laughed. And each time, June felt both joy and dread. Joy that her daughter was healing. Dread that it had cost her so much. June began declining interviews. She refused publishers. She turned down offers to appear on talk shows or release a memoir. The story had been told. The damage done. She found herself wondering if her mother's memory had been honored or exploited and whether vengeance had ever been the right word for what she'd done. One morning, she walked into the Richardson estate unannounced. Bill was in the garden, pruning roses. He looked up, startled, expecting fury. "Clara's going to live," June said. Bill set his shears down. "I'm glad." She sat on a nearby bench. "I don't forgive you," she said. "I don't expect you to. But I needed you to know. I didn't tell Clara you were a monster. I let her decide." Bill nodded. "What did she decide?" June paused. "That you're just a man." They sat in silence. No apologies. No reconciliation. But the air between them shifted slightly. Not warmer. Just less sharp. The next week, Bill made a decision. He called a press conference. Standing at the hospital he helped build, he spoke clearly. "I have made grave mistakes in my life. I have caused pain. I cannot undo the past. But I will no longer hide from it. I am stepping down from all leadership positions at Richardson Medical and the Foundation." He offered no defense. No pleas. Only a final sentence. Accountability is not justice, but it is the beginning of peace. He walked off the stage and into obscurity. Clara watched the press conference on a hospital TV. She turned to her mother. He looked sad. June nodded. He was. "Do you think he loved you?" The question hit like a wave. June struggled to answer. "I think he didn't know how. And I think I hated him for that." "Do you still?" June didn't lie this time. Sometimes. But not always. That night, June took Clara to the beach. They lit a paper lantern, watching it rise into the sky. Clara wrote her name, and the names of her grandparents. All of them. The wind carried it far beyond the gates. Months passed after Bill's resignation, and the world moved on, as it always does. The headlines faded. The donations trickled back. The hospital rebranded, scrubbing Bill's name from its marble plaques and website headers. Richardson Medical was now just RM Health, leaner, restructured, and determined to be forgetful. But in the quiet places the public couldn't see, the damage lingered. Bill lived in a small cottage now, removed from the estate and the city. A place with no staff, no press, no expectations. He spent his days in the garden and his nights reading old journals, some his own, others his late wife's, which June had unexpectedly returned to him in a sealed box. The final entry from Marianne had been a short poem. "If the door shuts behind you, don't turn the knob again. Light moves forward." He read it every morning. June remained in town longer than expected. Clara was enrolled in school. Her health, while still delicate, had stabilized enough to allow a return to childhood. She had new friends. Art classes. Books she devoured. And she often asked questions June wasn't ready to answer. Like why her grandfather never came to school events. Or why they didn't live in the big house her cousins talked about. June answered with fragments of truth. He made mistakes. But he tried to help when it mattered. She wondered sometimes if she had done the right thing. If exposing the truth had brought her closure or simply emptied out a different kind of grief. Clara was safe. That was enough. Or it should have been. One day, Eva found June in the back row of a town lecture, listening quietly to a discussion on restorative justice. They talked afterward, walking down the tree-lined street past quiet cafes. "What are you still doing here?" Eva asked, not with judgment but genuine curiosity. "Clara likes it," June replied. "It's normal. And you?" "I don't know what I am." Eva stopped walking. "Then figure it out." But not alone. They kept in touch after that. Not friends exactly, but not strangers. They shared coffee, exchanged books, spoke rarely about Bill and often about daughters and mothers. In a strange way, their families were now stitched together not by blood, but by fallout. Kat remained wary. She never forgave June for going public. But she didn't interfere either. Her silence was the closest thing to tolerance she could manage. The real change came the night Clara went missing. It wasn't dramatic. No kidnapping. No crime. Just a child who wandered away from her school art exhibit, chasing a stray cat into the nearby woods. For hours, June was inconsolable. Police were called. Search parties organized. And then, just before sunset, Clara was found not by officers, but by Bill. He had been walking one of the trails near the woods, as he often did. When he heard her crying, he followed the sound and found her curled beneath a thicket of brush. Clara ran to him instantly. He brought her back to the main road, called June, and waited in silence as mother and daughter reunited. June stared at him, breathless. "Thank you," she whispered. Bill didn't speak. He just nodded and turned to leave. Clara grabbed his hand. "Will you come to my school next time?" she asked. He looked down at her. His face, carved by decades of regret, softened. "If your mom says I can." June hesitated, then nodded once. From then on, a fragile bond formed. Bill never stayed long. He came to see Clara read a poem at school, sat quietly during a holiday music recital, watched from the back as she played a flower in the spring play. He and June barely spoke. But there were nods. Moments. A sort of truce. The community saw him differently now. Not as the doctor. Not as the villain. Just as a man, walking slowly into the final chapter of his life. Clara, for her part, began writing her own story. Literally. Her teacher submitted her short piece, The Garden on the Hill, to a youth magazine. It was accepted. The story was about a lonely gardener who didn't know how to talk to people but loved growing things. At the end, he teaches a little girl how to plant seeds. When June read it, she cried. By the time summer came again, June had made her decision. She and Clara would stay. Not to rebuild what was lost, but to plant something new. She enrolled in a social work program, began working part-time with a local family trauma center. She and Eva co-led a seminar for survivors of generational abuse. They shared the mic, alternating stories. It wasn't about pity. It was about language. Giving pain a shape so it could be let go. Bill attended, sitting in the last row, a silent witness to the strength that had grown from the ruin he left behind. Clara waved to him as she stepped off the stage. In the final weeks of the summer, Bill collapsed while walking home. A stroke. He survived, but barely. June was listed as emergency contact. She sat in the hospital beside him, Clara asleep in a chair nearby. He opened his eyes, dazed. "I didn't want to leave without saying sorry. I didn't want you to die without hearing it." They held hands for the first time in 30 years. He passed away 2 weeks later. There was no grand funeral, just a private service. June spoke only 2 lines. "He was not a good man, but he gave me a good girl." She laid a rose on the casket. Clara added a paper crane. Eva, Kat, and Ted were there, standing together in the back. And when the ceremony ended, the entire family walked out into the sun. No secrets left. Only healing.